Hello and welcome to Transfermarkt TV. My name is Stefan Bienkowski. He's Manuel Veth, and today we are stateside because we are taking a look at one of the biggest deals that's gone through this year. Lionel Messi, the biggest player in the world, second biggest player in the world, depending on where you fall on the Messi-Ronaldo divide, has decided to take a shot at MLS, and he's moved to Inter Miami on a 2-year deal. So, we have Manu here. He's our MLS expert. Manu, let's just jump straight into this. There'll be a lot of people in Europe trying to figure out how an MLS team, and arguably not the biggest MLS team, I think I'm fair in saying, have managed to kind of coax still one of the biggest stars, still one of the most expensive stars in terms of his salary in the world, to hop across the Atlantic and play for Inter Miami next season.
I would like to say that's an easy question. It's not, and there's no easy answer here, because Inter Miami, as you pointed out, they have not done well in MLS this season. They sit last in the Eastern Conference at the moment. Of course, MLS, like many other North American leagues, are split into Eastern and Western conferences. There's 29 teams in the league, so that's the only way to really accommodate that structure. They sit last in the Eastern Conference at the moment and have really struggled. They fired Phil Neville earlier this year, and in many ways, people thought that was to pave the way for Messi to actually sign, because since then they have announced Tata Martino, who was the head coach of Barcelona, and of course Argentina has worked quite closely with Lionel Messi, and they too are considered friends, right? So that was sort of the first building block for them to get it done. A big factor here too is David Beckham, right? Beckham is one of the co-owners of the club. He's not the owner, as is often written. He's one of the co-owners. And he, of course, the Beckham factor was a big thing here to get this deal done because of his connections and the way he operates. But Jorge Mas, the main owner of the club, is South American as well and has a lot of South American connections. So, you can't underestimate his influence in making this deal happen. Structurally difficult in MLS because you can only sign 3 designated players. Designated players are the players that only count to a minimum charge towards the salary cap, right? They can pay paid as much as you want, but the charge towards the salary cap is only about $500,000, right? So the problem for Inter Miami was that they already had 3 designated players, and they did not just sign Messi, they also signed Sergio Busquets, right? So they bought one player down, Grigor. Grigor didn't get bought down. He's on the injury reserve list, so he doesn't count. And then they're buying down Campana, and so that frees up 2 spots in theory right there. What they've also done, and this is close to being confirmed, is that they're mutually terminating Rodolfo Pizarro's contract. So that is another designated spot that's freed up right there. And that gives them quite a lot of movement. So that secures them the ability to sign Busquets. It secures them the ability to sign Lionel Messi. And if you're asking about Jordi Alba, yes, he's also arriving. He will not be a designated player, though, because he's earning under $1.5 million. I know that's a lot of numbers, a lot of figures, and it's very complicated because it's MLS. Nothing is easy in MLS, unfortunately. But this is essentially how they have done it. They have done it with a lot of background work. They opened the doors for Messi's favorite coach to come, David Beckham, of course, and who is the founder of the designated player rule in many ways, right? When Beckham signed in MLS in 2007, that opened the door for players like Beckham or Messi to arrive, because MLS brought in this new rule where you can pay a player pretty much as you want, and Messi is going to earn a lot of money in MLS, Stefan. You hear figures in the $100 million a year range when you factor in bonuses, etc.
Yeah, very complicated off the pitch. Let's maybe move on the pitch where maybe things are a bit more straightforward. What do you think Messi could expect from MLS? Or what do you think MLS can expect from Messi? How do you think this is going to play out over the course of the season?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting because the question is it too late for Inter Miami to make a push towards the playoffs, right? The top 9 teams in the Eastern Conference make the playoffs. They're quite a far way out of that at the moment. And so you wonder what they can do structurally to make this work. MLS, it's not a top 5 European league. I would say it is probably in the top 10 European league range. It's not as challenging on the field at times. What makes the league very challenging is the travel, Stefan. You go from Inter Miami and you fly to a place like Vancouver on the West Coast, close to where I live. And that is a journey that's further from London to Moscow, right? Just to put it on the scale. And half your away trips are that length. So there's a lot of travel. There's a lot of climate differences as well. So we had instances last couple of years where teams would play at altitude in Colorado at minus temperatures and then go down to Houston and play at 20, 25 degrees at sea level, right? So it's a very difficult league in that terms, and that there's a lot of travel, a lot of different time zones to deal with, and you spend a lot of time away from the family, and that makes it challenging for, I think, especially older players. We've seen the likes of Steven Gerrard, Frank Lampard come over and really, really struggling, right? Because of those demands that come off the pitch. So, yeah, I think Lionel Messi, of course, he's one of the two greatest, maybe arguably the greatest player of all time. He brings a ton of quality. You saw what he's done at PSG last year, even still at his age, right? So I think he will overcome those difficulties, and he will definitely bring an impact in terms of his on-field performances.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting you mentioned David Beckham a moment ago and the kind of legacy that he's left behind in MLS on the pitch and off it. Obviously, on the pitch, LA Galaxy were able to kind of use him to build themselves into this kind of global brand. What do you think Inter Miami have to do to get the most out of this Messi move so that they can kind of reap the benefits of it more long after perhaps he decides to move back to Europe or Argentina or wherever else in 2 years' time?
Yeah, you have to remember the Beckham Galaxy marriage was difficult at first as well. Beckham would go off to Europe every year and play games there, right? I think what made the Beckham Galaxy marriage work, and why there is a David Beckham statue in front of Dignity Health Sports Park today, is because they had success. They won titles. And I think at the end of the day, that's what it will need to take. Lionel Messi will have to win titles with Inter Miami. And of course, they will have to surround him with players that make it possible. I mentioned Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba. Those are older players, and there's a huge danger with signing older players in MLS. The league isn't what it used to be when Beckham arrived, right? Where you could just surround him with veteran players, and because the quality wasn't as good, they would still be able to dominate that league. The league has changed. It's become younger. It's become quicker. There's a lot of young South American players. So Jordi Alba and Sergio Busquets are not going to be enough. And it's no surprising then that recently, over the last few days, they have been linked with Diego Gomez from Libertad, Brian Aguirre from Newell, and Thomas Aviles from Racing Club. And these are younger South American players with a lot of upside. Tata Martino knows these players really well. And it makes sense that they are now looking, okay, we've brought in a core of veteran players. We have some talented players already, like Benja Cremaschi, who's one of the biggest talents in U.S. soccer at the moment, who's come up through the Inter Miami Academy. But we need to surround them with more younger talent as well that can take off sort of the load, the travel load, the playing in difficult environments, and being under pressure. Take that off Lionel Messi and make sure that he can just perform, right? And I think they have a plan. It does look like they have a plan, and I think it's going to be interesting to see whether that plan works this year, which I think is difficult. But in the long run, for Lionel Messi to be a success, they will have to win an MLS Cup. They might have to win a CONCACAF Champions League. They will have to ensure that when he leaves, Beckham's legacy is massive in MLS. When Beckham arrived, the league was on its deathbed, and it has since thrived to become a 29 league team, club team, and is a league where a franchise is worth $500 million just to enter, right? If Messi can do the same thing, then that was a success.
Yeah, very, very interesting. It'd be really fascinating to see what happens over the next 2 years, not only Inter Miami, but also MLS in general. And of course, you can keep up to date with all of that with Manuel's fantastic reporting on transfermarkt.us. All the stats, all the transfers, and of course, all the match reports as well. So make sure you head there. And before that, let us know what you guys think. Let us know in the comments below if you think Messi made the right move moving to Inter Miami. Will it all end in tears, or do you think he can do what David Beckham did for LA Galaxy all those years ago? And until next time, thanks very much, and we'll speak to you soon.